According to the Autism Society, the prevalence of autism in the United States children increased by 119.4% from 2000 to 2010. 1 in 68 children born in the United States have an autism spectrum disorder, making autism the fastest growing developmental disability. Find out more about this on Connecting Our Community coming up next. Hi, I'm Pat Shoemaker. Welcome to Connecting Our Community. Our guest tonight is Barbara Ebell, a local community advocate for autism awareness. Barbara, welcome to the show. First of all, you're an advocate for autism awareness. You have a child with autism?
Yes, I do. And by the way, thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah. And your child's son or daughter?
It's a daughter.
A daughter.
And that my daughter is 10 years old. And that so she was actually diagnosed with autism when she was 17 months.
Oh, and how do you diagnose a child at 17 months?
You know, I was a first-time mom, so I did not know about any information or science about autism. So when my daughter was not able to do the things that a 17-month is able to do, then I got a little concerned. And I started reaching out to professionals and did a little bit of research about what is it that I can do to be able to find out exactly what was going on with her. At one point, I thought that she was has some kind of a hearing impairment, and that so I did all the testing, and she was obviously negative. And then that's when I went to reach out to a neurology, and they did all the testing, and they actually came up with the autism diagnosis.
Now, I know that it is very common for children who aren't responding, you think automatically deafness. But what else were the signs or the symptoms that you were noticing that led you to think there wasn't normal development?
She had a lot of sensory challenges. She did not speak to me until she was almost 3. So she may have like probably 5 words. And I knew at that point that that was not the norm. And that so I started doing a lot of research, and it was my first child, so I was a first-time mom, and it was a little overwhelming at first, and I didn't know what to do with it. But since that I was working with the community already, and I knew how to do research and how to ask questions that most, and a lot of people don't know what to ask when it comes to autism, I was able to get some resources and be able to give her the help that she actually needed.
And you're very calm about this. You're very sort of matter of fact. I suppose you've had a lot of years to think about it, to work with it, within the community, within the outreach that you do. But what was your first reaction when you were told that your child was autistic? Was it a relief because you had a diagnosis, or was there a fear? Was there a, what was that like?
I think it was both, and it was a mixed feeling. I was devastating, obviously, because no mom or father want to have a child that has a developmental delay, and that it was my first child and my only child. So at first I was very overwhelmed, and but then I was like, I have to be able to just give myself, in place and be able to really start looking for ways that I can help my daughter. Because as parents, we are the biggest advocate for our kids. And then I knew that if I did not research or start, looking for resources, then there were no way that she could be able to be where she is now. And I am happy to say that she's actually speaking. She's doing fantastic. Actually, some people are telling me, well, she doesn't look autistic, and that's because I started early with intervention, and I started, providing a lot of services for her. But it's still challenging because even that I somewhat knowledgeable about resources, then I started thinking, well, what about the parents that don't know about resources, or they don't know where to look for resources? And I started, speaking with some parents, and they were, way behind me and, knowing about resources and even the knowledge of the condition. And I started having these wonderful thoughts about starting a nonprofit. And I started a nonprofit with an attorney that she's actually an advocate at the legal system level to advocate for kids with special needs. And the two of us, we started a nonprofit organization to help parents with kids with special needs.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something that you said, though, because it sort of hits my mind that you said that some people look at your daughter and say, well, she doesn't look autistic. Children with Down syndrome, children with physical disabilities that you can look at and say, well, that child has a broken leg or, whatever. I think people sometimes think that an autistic child or person looks a certain way and has a certain distinguishing characteristic that you can immediately look and say that person or child is autistic. Do you find that people have different preconceived ideas like that you have to sort of fight against? An autistic child is a child first and an autistic person after that, or does that not come up? Is
yes,
that not
it
part
does in our daily life.
Yeah.
I always advocate for our community not to label. Even if a child come across to be on a wheelchair or is probably different from other kids that are, for example, they're able to communicate versus, an autistic child that is not verbal, then I don't think that we should, make a distinguish,
Right.
because then, we're really not helping our kids. So I'm always an advocating for us to be able to treat our kids just like a normal kid, regardless whether or not they have, a disability. So it's obvious, but we just need to treat kids just like any other kids, whether they have a special need or not.
Right. And that was sort of my point, that do you find that people they have a preconceived idea and they see your daughter looks normal, bad word, but you know what I mean. She doesn't look like she would need any special care, special attention, have any special needs.
Yeah, there is a preconceived, because when your child is not engaging, and especially a child with autism, and you approach the child and you start asking questions and the child is not being responsive, then automatically someone will tell that child is lacking of communication or or has a communication delay. And through all the years that I've been helping my daughter, I have a fight against the system, and whether it's through medical services or whether it's through the education system, because believe it or not, we are still way behind. And having enough funding to be able to provide enough resources and services for our kids that actually are special needs. And I believe that we need to kind of break that mindset and be able to just, communicate to our community. These are kids just like any other kid. So we should not be able to just have that preconceived, mindset and just, start, helping each other and giving support, and especially to our parents that they're, facing so many challenges just to trying to raise a child that is a special need.
Yeah, and the fact that the latest numbers that I saw and heard, that 1 in 68 children will have or does have an autism spectrum disorder, that's astonishing to me. Do you think it's because doctors and nurses and parents are now more aware of the circumstances, or do you really think that the incidence of it has just jumped so
Well, I think there
much
is more awareness now. My daughter is 10 years old.
Right.
So when she was actually diagnosed with autism 10 years ago, people didn't know exactly how to even treat it. Obviously, there's still a lot of research, and especially in the National Institute for Health, that they're trying to find out the cause of autism. There are some arguments that they're stating that it could be vaccination, others it could be genetics. So, still they haven't been able to find out exactly, what is the reason why and so many kids are coming up with autism. But what we need to focus is how we can develop more resources to be able to help children that they actually have autism. I think it has to be maybe, some people arguing that maybe it's the environment, maybe it's what we eat. We just don't know. Whatever the reasons are, I think we need to make sure that we're ready to be able to deal with the situation as parents and be able to do early intervention. Because I believe if I was not able to provide a lot of speech and a lot of tutoring and a lot of service, providing a lot of services to my daughter, I don't think that she would be where she is now. And sometimes, parents, they don't want to admit that the child has a problem.
Right.
And so they wait, and then the time goes by, and then the child now is 8 years, versus a year or 2 year old that you can actually go back and be able to kind of tackle into the problem and be able to start helping your child. So I think it's a lot of prevention, the key to be able to help your kid with, with this kind of disability.
Yeah. And as an 8-year-old, would there be different symptoms, different signs, different things?
Yes, depends, because there's different levels of autism. You have a level of a child that is very advanced and is not verbal. Yeah. Is only able to communicate through an iPad or different tools that that they use to communicate, whether it's the computer or different form or mechanism of communication.
And there is so much more. Please stay tuned for the second half of our program. We'll be right back.
When you donate goods in response to an international disaster, it's expensive.
They have to cross the sea, pass through customs, be inspected, sorted, then finally delivered.
And often they arrive too late to help, making your good intentions feel a little empty.
There is a better way.
Cash donations are fast, simple, and allow professional relief workers to purchase supplies close at hand.
Cash is best. Learn more at CIDI.org.
It's our duty to serve veterans and military families who serve their country in the most difficult ways imaginable. Together, we can say thank you in so many ways. Small acts of kindness mean more than anything. With our support, veterans and military families can face even the most difficult challenges. Let's honor their service with ours.
Hi, welcome back to Connecting Our Community. We're discussing autism, and we have Barbara Ebell, who is an advocate for autism awareness. You were talking about the different kinds of symptoms and signs at different ages.
Right. I believe if the parents doesn't cut with the problem early age, then the problem with the developmental delay would increase. So, for example, if you're, one of the biggest signs of a child that has autism is a speech delay. So, if you actually start providing a lot of speech therapy since, a year or two, then the probability is that your child will be able to increase their communication skills. But if you start providing speech at 8 years old, then you have lost all those years. So that's why I was mentioning, previously that it's so critical to be able to provide intervention at early age, because that's the key to be able to help your child to, increase their communications and their learning. For example, with my daughter, I provided a tutor to be able to help her with their reading skills and writing skills and math. And now she's reading perfectly. And I never thought that she was going to be able to have the ability to read, not because I didn't believe in her, it's just because sometimes you doubt, how much progress your child can make, because, you just don't know whether they're going to be making a little progress or they're going to be making a huge progress. So I was very pleased to know that she did, but that was only because I including a lot of additional support services, speech, tutoring, I actually have her to do a lot of the social activities because that's also help kids, with their development. Swimming, soccer, music, kids are gifted in many, many ways. We just need to find out how they're gifted.
Right. One of my former coworkers found out that her son, found out, bad word, but her son was diagnosed with autism when he was probably 2 or 3. And he was not he was not a child who would have, I don't think, been able to do any of the activities that you just said that your daughter is doing. So how do you distinguish? I mean, if your child won't participate in group activities, won't, talk or whatever, what can you do? Where do you turn? I would
Well, you
imagine
still need to
it's-
push.
Yeah.
Even that the child doesn't want to participate because.
But how much do you push? I
Well,
mean,
you should push.
Oh,
Maybe because
okay.
I'm a mother that, I do not accept no. When somebody said, "Well, your child cannot do this," I say, let's try.
Yeah.
Maybe we can try. Maybe it will work.
Yeah.
But with kids like that, you have to find different ways of engaging them because there is one activity, believe it or not, that they will be able to engage and to be able to participate. But you have to start somewhere. And and I know that with kids with autism, they have a tendency to not socialize. By the way, that's true at some point. With my daughter, she was, she did not want to socialize, but you know what I did? I actually signed her up with social groups, and I always had people in my house, and I started, playing the piano with her, and start singing when we have, a guest over, just to kind of have her used to be around people. So there is a lot of creative ways that you can come up with to be able to engage your child and be able to, maybe become a little bit more sociable and be able to just get used to be around people and not be able to be on the corner. So I do believe, yes, it's challenging, for all of us that we have kids with special needs, but you cannot give up. Because, like I say, you're the biggest advocate for your child. So you have to believe that that child has a gift somewhere. You just need to keep pushing, and you just need to keep finding what is that gift the child has that you can actually help to excel and be able to, to grow.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I love your passion about this. What happens? I mean, I'm sure that you meet parents who are absolutely devastated, not equipped, not willing to accept that my child is not perfect. How can this be? Where do you start with that? Because I think the parents not accepting devastates the child. There's no pushing, as in your case for your daughter, where you see light at the end of the tunnel. What do you do with these parents who
with
don't
parents,
see that?
you have to take care of yourself first. In order for you to help your child, you have to take care of you. And what I mean is that you have to, maybe look for counseling because, we're always going to be in denial. Why me? Why not other
Right.
parents? And that we always feel that we're alone in this world and nobody else can actually understand us. So I think you have to have an inner motivation yourself and be positive because if you are not motivating yourself as a parent, how can you motivate your child?
Right.
So you got to work with your inner self first and do those things to be able to make you be more positive and more trying to find the right wording, but more engaging. And also I think it was very important at the beginning that I actually belonged to some support groups. Other parents that they were motivators, and they motivate me to do the things that that I'm doing now. Because yes, I was one point I was there too. All of us we're all human, and so encouraging and motivating other parents that you can say there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that we can work together. So I started doing a lot of advocacy, because when I'm helping other people, it's helping me too. And and then you think about, wow, your situation is not the worst, because there's other more worse situations than yours. You think that your situation is the worst, but it is not.
Yeah.
So you have to look at it from that perspective and start, helping and just giving to others. That I think is the greatest satisfaction.
Yeah, I agree. And do you find that your daughter, do you think that she outgrows the autism, or is it just that you all have learned to live with it now and
I think it's a
know what
combination
the
of both.
triggers are, or?
It's a combination of both, and we have learned, and to be able to deal with with her condition. She's now becoming a teenager,
Yeah.
and she's developing the teenager attitude sometimes, which is good. It's part of the development. All of us, we have kids. I'm sure
Yes.
you've been there.
Yeah.
And but I think it's just accept that no matter whether your child has no disability or disability, you love them anyways, and that they need to receive that feeling and that emotion from you, because kids, they're pretty sensitive. So if you're giving them self confidence that we're going to work together and we're going to accomplish all this together, then it's a motivation for them to do better.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the key, just an acceptance, and then just working together and just not looking, oh, you're a special child. No, you're just like any child.
Right.
You laugh, you play, you do all the things that any child would do.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
That's
I think
great.
that's probably one of the things that I will advise.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you had started a foundation.
I did.
So-
I did. Now I'm part of the board of directors, since that I'm doing a little bit more training with parents and trying to teach them about rights that they need to know as far as the law and how they can advocate, and especially at the public school level. And so my counterpart that actually we started the nonprofit organization, so she's doing a lot of more advocacy at the legal portion of it, just talking about the IDEA law that actually is a federal law that, that the school have to follow, and they need to be able to provide accommodations for that child to be successful in the school system. I'm actually focusing more in providing workshops on motivating parents and then sharing resources and how they can actually understand the condition of autism, whether it's autism or whether it's Down syndrome. So I just not cover just autism, but I also cover other disability conditions. So it's just trying to engage them and provide awareness and educating our community and how they can learn more about these conditions and be able to help the child, the children.
And do you find, because it's been almost 10 years since your daughter was diagnosed, do you see things are changing? Do you see more things in place in the schools and out in public?
Yes. From 10 years to present, yes, there is more advocacy. There is more resources. Still, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And that my next step is to be able to do an advocacy at the legislator level. And I'm pretty engaged with my elected officials, because I think we need to start from there to be able to advocate for more funding and be able to advocate for more resources. And I do believe that if I did not have the knowledge and the resources, my daughter would not be where she is. What about those parents that they have a language barrier?
Exactly.
They don't have the resources. They have to work 2 jobs just to provide food for the family, and they're just tired. They just don't want to deal with with the
Right. conditions.
So we need to really still bring more resources into the state and around the country, whether it's speaking or advocating with our elected official locally, state, or federal. But we need to do it, and I think maybe in another 5 years, maybe we will have a little bit more resources of what we have now. We're okay, but we're not there yet. And especially within the school system, we have a lot of more work to do.
So do you think that it's more important to advocate for more funding for facilities for care, or for research into treatment, prevention?
I would say both.
Both.
Because I think if we are able one day to find the cause of autism, then we can actually find out, how we can maybe find a cure, if there is, a cure for it. I'm very optimistic that one day we'll be there. But to me, in the meantime, we have to deal with the immediate problem. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is trying to make sure that your child is receiving the resources within the education system. I remember that I had to hire an advocate before I knew about the IEP process, and that and be able to just let the school know, this is what my daughter needs versus what you think she needs.
Right, and
so,
I know that those are all very important. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. This is something that we can talk about for a long time, but I want to thank you for being here. For more information about autism, there are a few websites. There are many websites you can go to, but these are just some of them. autismspeaks.org, autism-society.org, the Montgomery County Infants and Toddlers Program Early Intervention for Children with Disabilities and Delays. Phone number is 240-777-3997. You can go to your local Montgomery County Autism Connect site, montgomery-asa@maryland-autism.org, or call 301-652-3912. There are many others that will be available at the end. You'll be able to see them. I'm not going to read them all there. You can also go to the Connecting Our Community blog on the mymcmedia.org website. Again, thank you for watching, and please, if you need help at any of those websites, you'll be able to find it. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.